In the 1860s, sailing ships were in their prime and sailing down from Boston and New York and the East Coast of America down into the Caribbean to go to Jamaica and the West Indies. And they found that the best route going was right through the islands of the Bahamas. And they were getting wrecked. And wrecking was a big business in the Bahamas. And the shipping companies of all over the world kept saying to the Bahamas, why don't you have some lights? We can't find our way through these islands without some big lights. And we're losing ships and men and people and cargo. So the British government, Trinity House in London, said, okay, we'll build some. So the first one they built was Hole in the Wall, 1836, which seemed to be the most important one. But then they found that there was one wreck a month happening up around Abaco, so they put one at Elbow Key. People have often said to me, Hopetown's a little tiny place, why do they put up a big light? Well, they didn't put it up because of anybody coming to Hopetown. These ships were big sailing ships. They couldn't even get on the bank. They sailed by. And the idea was, here's where you are, but stay away. And then they put one over at Bimini, and then they decided to put a few more to lead the boats right on down through to the Windward Passage between Cuba and Hispaniola. I don't think Bahamians ever really caused wrecks. Wrecking is what it was called, but they didn't cause wrecks. They might have been happy when a wreck happened, but their first duty was to save the sailors and save the people. And then they took the first guy there took the wrecking rights, and he could become the wreck master, and he would be the owner. And the salvage stuff was sent into Nassau and sold on the open market to other places in the world. But they kept a little bit of stuff here, I think. It didn't all go into Nassau. But it was a good business. There were a lot of ships in the business of wreckage. There's a system that they were using. They were funded by the boats that passed. For the most part, I'm sure they didn't pay for it completely, but they helped pay for it. Whereby, when a ship was passing a lighthouse, and it was mighty glad that it was there because they knew where they were, they would fly a flag and tell the keepers who they were, and then the keepers would report to Trinity House and tell them to send a bill. They passed my lighthouse, like a turnstile. You pass the lighthouse, you've got to pay. Now, it might not happen for another year by the time the word got back, but the shipping company says, great, we didn't lose a boat. Or another way that could happen is if a boat went by a lighthouse and it was recorded by the keepers and spoken with by flags, and then disappeared, they would at least know where to start to look. They say, okay, we saw it at this lighthouse and we heard about it at the next lighthouse, but it never got to the next one. So maybe she went down between there, we'll go looking, and they might find survivors or something. Now, there are keepers. They had to go to a training school in Nassau, and they would get their certificate by working on lighthouses under somebody else. And you would have a principal keeper, and the principal would have an assistant. They have to be able to fend for themselves pretty nicely and not mind being alone, not mind staying up all night.
The hardest thing with this job is to get up your mind. Gotta push. Dangerous part of this job is when the hurricane season. It's scary sometimes. Because you know, you get glass over here, sometimes you get the thunder and lightning, strong breeze, you feel it rocking. Yes, you rock right here. You have to crank it up every hour.
Yeah, they pay all the bills. The only thing you buy, your clothes and your food. As far as the water bill, light bill and things, they take care of it. Even right down to the cooking gas, they come and take care of that.
They had goats and they had little farms wherever they could, and some of the stations were available for that, and some of the stations weren't.
I'm the principal keeper. I take care of this establishment. This is my home, and I love it, and I love my job, the tower, because I keep in shape. Now, I exercise, I work out a lot, and I love the tower to keep in shape.
There's a keeper that starts up and he runs from sundown to midnight, and then the other keeper takes over and runs from midnight to sunup. And then the next night they reverse that process. They have option to do it a different way if they want to, but that's basically what they're supposed to be doing.
I don't hang around. I let other keeper hang around. He hang around, not me. I go on looking because there's money to be made on the side down there. You understand? You can go fishing. The hotel them will buying the fish, and then you could go polishing the yacht. You know, as time as I done polish 3 yacht, that's $300, and I done do that by 1 o'clock. You know what I mean?
There's something called hard rock. Hard rock duty was Great Isaac and some of the more isolated ones where they didn't have a good access to boating, so they couldn't go off conking and fishing very easily. Hole in the Wall was not a very good easy station because it was a long, long way from Marsh Harbor and very difficult to land a boat there, even when they were to be resupplied with kerosene, and the keeper the inspector would come along, and sometimes he couldn't even go ashore. He'd just talk to him from the boat and not even be able to go ashore and see what's happening. Just too rough an area. So that was considered a real hard rock station.
You didn't have to go look for anything to count. You could walk out in the water, step on the shore, and you could pick up 500-600 count. You could stand, throw your line out and catch bonefish, whatever type of fish you. Then plus the tail will come up on the beach during the season and lay the egg, and you could catch them, sell it, you know. And seeing it's a busy shipping passage, all kind of big boats pass through, and sometimes they stop them to do trade. You can make a little extra money and all kind of things like that, you see.
Keepers have to go through a training program in Nassau and be able to repair what they know what they're doing and repair it if they have a breakdown. So they have to be in some way mechanically minded. The kerosene is in tanks down below, and it's pumped up through air pressure from another tank that drives the kerosene up into this tube here. This one goes onto this one. And then there's a little nipple on top there which makes it spray, and it sprays into this little cone. Then above that, we have the mantle, and what comes through beyond that goes under the mantle and lights that up like a Bunsen burner. And they have to wind up the clock mechanism like a cuckoo clock every hour and a half. And with a tall tower like that, you would have thought that they could make the weights go for hours and hours and hours and hours. But they want to keep the keepers awake. If the keeper goes to sleep, the light might go out. The turning would still happen because that would be automatic. But if the light goes out, they want that keeper to be there. So he's supposed to be awake. So they're making every hour and a half crank it up to the top.
Those days the light was manual, right? Talking about you heat it up, not electrical, not electric at all. You heat it up, turn it on, it at 400,000 candle power and a prism that spin and reflect it. You can see it 16, hole on the wall, you could see it 19 kilo, but you could see it 16 with your eyes just like that.
In the 60s and 70s, they were all automated. All over the world, they were automated, and people just have, not paying attention. quite a few lighthouses in the States now have been taken over by lighthouse associations, but they can't go back to the original technology because they don't have it. I'd already started the Bahamas in the Lighthouse Preservation Society in order to prevent more automation, but then they did hole in the wall and I couldn't stop them from doing that. But when it came to Hopetown, I said, no, I don't think so. I didn't exactly threaten government, but I spoke out quite crudely about what a mistake it would be to automate the last 3 lighthouses in the world that operate this way. We have Hopetown, San Salvador, and Great Anagua, and they still operate on this principle of kerosene and hand wound. All the other lighthouses in the world are automated, and I've not been able to find anybody that refutes my statement that we have the last 3 in the world. I believe in old history, old sailing ships, old technology, and this stuff was made to go for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's only 144 years old now. They built it to last 300 years, and it probably will. We have GPS and we have radar, but when you're at sea and you think you know where you are because that's exactly where the GPS says you are, but when you see a lighthouse, then you really know where you are. If all else fails, the lighthouse is still going, and that's what makes it important.
If I could do it all over again, I would do it all over again. I wouldn't tell you no lie.
Lighthouses are often banded in different colors because in the daytime you can't see white very well, but you can see the dark color. But in the nighttime you won't see the dark color, you'll see the white. It could be red and white, could be black and white. The Hatteras light is spiraled with black and white, and most of these lights were either red and white or black and white. But over the years they found that the red paint was so expensive that they painted them all white.